hit misses.
There
Yay!
goes.
Good job, Jane.
Okay, perfect. You know, watching Jane, I think, at least I always do, and I think all of us do, forget, take for granted, whatever expression you want to use, how the Lord has blessed this Bible study group by putting together a group of women who have all different talents. I could no more do what Jane is doing.
Yeah, me neither.
Yes, you could.
I could guarantee we'd never get on the screen. And Donna also. I mean, if
Yeah.
Donna didn't do the computer work that she does,
Yeah.
That's
Oh my
right.
God.
and we wouldn't have Laura with us with her lovely
Right.
face each week, or Kathy.
Right.
The Lord truly blessed us. I believe personally that God puts us where He wants us at a certain time
Yes, I agree.
for our
True.
benefits.
True.
15 years ago, we probably wouldn't have talked to each other.
Right.
So thank you, Jane. We appreciate your talents. Not only with the computer this morning, with keeping that prayer list going.
Yes.
Mhm, yes,
Thank you.
indeed.
A lot
Okay.
of work. A lot of work.
Verna had said that she was going to be on this morning. Has anybody heard from her? I just realized she's not here. I haven't talked to her since church on Sunday. Okay, I told you that this week we were going to start the book of Judges, and we are. But I forgot, or God reminded me that I had forgotten to talk about one other thing when we were doing so much of the background for the last 3 weeks. And that's the number 40. And you've heard me talking about how Judges is in a roughly 40-year cycle, and sword for sin, God's wrath, oppression, repentance, and then deliverance. Israel would sin, God would get angry, he'd send in the pressure, Israel would repent, and then God would deliver them. And that cycle went on round and round and round through Judges. It was a roughly 40 years cycle. Now the word or the number 40 usually has to do with testing in the Bible. Usually has to do with testing, a trial, probation, that type of thing. A common phrase used about that 40-year cycle is a faith that is not tested cannot be trusted. A faith that is not tested cannot be trusted. There's a lot of examples of 40 days, 40 nights, 40 weeks in the Bible. And Barbara, let's stick it in the back of our minds. I have a list of them that would make a good 1 week study.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Good idea. Yeah.
So just a few very quickly. Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. The people of Israel walked 40 years in the desert. The spies that Moses sent into the land of Canaan after they had gotten to the starting point were there for 40 days. Noah gave, or the flood, 40 days of the flood. The prophet Jonah gave Nineveh 40 days to repent. And there's Jesus appeared 40 days after his resurrection. The number 40 represents one generation of the children in the wilderness. So, and I'm going through these quickly. I'm not even Elijah and Elisha 40 days. So I would love to one time, when we have a break, do a study on it where we'll actually go to each of the Bible passages. But remember, 40 is a definite meaning, and 40 lashes. That's in Deuteronomy. Never use more than 40 lashes because you'd hurt a person. So keep that in the back of your mind. The Israelites were being tested to prove, their faith and trustworthiness in God. Okay, Judges, chapter 1. If you'll pull up your packet and turn to the map, we're going to be working with the map today. Okay, now just a brief commentary. Remember, Judges, the author is unknown, but tradition has it that it was probably Samuel, and which would fit because Samuel was the last of the judges. So he would know the history. So probably Samuel. It covers a period of approximately 1050 to 1000 BC, 1350 to 1000. Not quite 400 years, because they also went in 400 cycles. Okay. Now, looking at your maps, down at the bottom, sort of in the middle of the page, is Kadesh Barnea. Do y'all see it down there? Why is that important? What do you remember about it?
Find it. Is it big print or little print?
It's little print.
Okay.
Go to the bottom line and go from left to right, and you'll see Kadesh Barnea. Bottom line, everybody see it?
No.
Yes.
Okay,
No.
Barbara, go to the bottom line of the map.
Are we on the right map? The one that says Judges map locations in Judges 1 through 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Go to the bottom of the map, that
Yeah.
line across the bottom, the
Yeah.
black line,
Right.
and go to your
I
right.
see it. I see it.
Okay.
Kadesh,
Kadesh Barnea
okay,
is where Moses brought the people where they were supposed to go into the promised land, from Kadesh Barnea. That's why it's important to and see its location. It's right there on the edge of where they settled. Why didn't they go in there?
They sinned. They sinned and God said they couldn't go.
Why? Remember, Moses sent 40 spies into Canaan. They came back. 38 of them said, "Oh, it's horrible." Caleb and Joshua said, "No, we should go in." And remember, I'm paraphrasing all this. The people did not obey, so they had the 40 years of wandering. That's why Kadesh Barnea is important. They could have, as you notice, if you look at the map, gone into Canaan much more easily from Kadesh Barnea than they ended up going in when they had to cross to get in and had to go all the way around. Okay, so 40 came into play there. Now,
Question,
yes.
Marlene? Okay, I see where it says, it's got a little arrow going to Egypt there on the far left.
Yes,
Do you know if this area bordered on Egypt, or was it all those Canaanite tribes in between?
go back to the left of the page.
Yeah.
Go back to the left of the page.
Yeah,
At the bottom and look up just a little bit
yeah.
and see Egypt.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes. So no, that was kind of off to the side.
Okay, so it wasn't.
They probably bordered a little bit, but
Okay.
Egypt was off to the side and more down.
Okay, my geography is terrible, so, okay.
Okay. Now, to the right of Kadesh Barnea, we see Edom. And Edom was important. Why?
I don't know.
It was developed by Esau. And they were enemies of the Jewish people. It's called Edom because Esau, remember, sold his birthright to his twin. That's in Genesis 25, verse 30. And it says he became named Edom. Okay, so they had to go through the land of Edom, and remember, there were battles. Okay.
God bless you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Go up from Edom and see Moab. Sort almost straight up. See Moab?
Moab. Oh, I see it.
See Moab? Why is Moab important? Why do we,
Ruth went.
Laura?
Sorry. There we go. Ruth was a Moabite.
Right.
And she became, by marriage, became Jewish and in the line of David.
Right.
Therefore, in the line of Jesus.
Right. Right. And that's it. She just gave us information from chapter 4 of the book of Ruth at the end. Who established Moab?
Oh,
The son of Lot by his oldest daughter. Remember, Lot's 2 daughters
yeah.
sinned after everything fell apart. They said we're the only all people left in the world. So Lot's oldest daughter went into Lot. She had a son, and he founded Moab. Also enemies as they were going through. Okay, go up and slightly to the right, and you'll see Ammon or Ammon, Ammon.
The river?
Pardon me?
Is it the river?
No, it's BJ. Look, BJ, who asked me that? If you look
It's in big
up,
It's big print
Oh, I
halfway
see
up.
way up there. I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Ammon or Ammon was settled by the son of Lot, by Lot's youngest daughter or younger daughter. Okay, and these 3 countries that I'm talking about Edom, Moab, and Ammon, they all had to, the Israelites had to go through and had problems with to get into the promised land. And they're going to show up again in Judges. Okay, now on this map, like you saw the words Edom and Moab and Ammon, Negev, the desert, they're all written in bigger block print.
Right.
And you'll notice on the map, the 12 tribes are placed also in bigger print, and they're placed in the approximate area of the land that was given to them. Okay. Now we're going to be reading chapter 1 and 2 and 3 in the coming weeks. We will be locating cities. The smaller print is the cities. Oh, there's one thing I didn't have you place into position. Look at the Dead Sea. Find the Dead Sea. Go
got
up
it.
and to the right, you see Reuben. That's the tribe of Reuben. You see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go slightly above the BEN and you say Mount Nebo or Pisgah.
Yeah.
Who knows what that mountain was? Laura,
Where Moses died,
I'm sorry,
where Moses died.
where Moses died. And that's also where he talked to the people. Okay. Now, we don't know if that's where Moses was buried because it was never told us in the Bible where Moses was buried. But you'll see that.
Marlene, I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before you leave that thought, if you don't mind. On Mount Nebo, if that's where Moses died, and it's near the area where the tribe of Reuben is in the promised land, it looks like then he would have made it to the promised land, but he didn't.
He was, okay, good point, Jane. He was in the promised land under the covenant of Abraham that God made with Abraham. Okay, because remember, with the covenant of Abraham that God made with Abraham, they were promised the land all the way to the Euphrates, which is still west of what this map is showing. Okay, so he died in the promised land as God promised Abraham. But remember, Moses was not allowed to enter the promised land that God promised them now as they're waiting to go across. Okay, as they were waiting to go across, because remember, Moses was told, and this is in Deuteronomy, I think we read that passage. I have it in front of me, but Moses was told, he went up to the mountain and he looked east. Okay, and so he looked towards the Mediterranean. And that's what God promised the Israelites at that time. Am I making sense, Barbara?
Well, I understand what you're saying. I'm just still a little bit confused, but
I have a question or statement. When Moses was shown the promised land, it was on the other side of the River Jordan. He was never allowed to cross the River Jordan
Right.
with the Israelites, and that's where that comes in. And the reason why there are some tribes on the other side where Moses died was because there were tribes Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad, I believe. They wanted to stay on that side of the river.
I remember
Right.
that. But I
Yeah.
didn't know about Reuben, so.
Yeah, and see, I'll get to 1 minute, Barbara.
Okay.
What Laura said is exactly right. The Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and half of Manasseh all stayed to the right of the river Jordan, okay? Under the covenant with Abraham, they were still in the promised land. Now, do you all follow that much?
Yes.
Yes. The rest of them that crossed over and went to the east of the river are there not only under the covenant with Abraham, but with the promise that God made to Moses.
That's right, because he said, if the others go to war, you have to cross over and come help us.
Exactly. And
I remember that now.
We'll get into
Remember.
that.
I remember that now.
And it takes a while because you look at the tribes that stayed on the right and go, that's not what was promised. But it was under the covenant of Abraham. And remember, that covenant has never been fulfilled.
Yeah.
It's still in existence. Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
Gotcha.
isn't there, I could be wrong, but isn't there a time element here? And the tribes, they were not given their geographic territory until after Moses died, am I correct or not?
Correct.
Yeah, so that, by saying that Moses died, at Mount Nebo, those other tribes had not been assigned those places yet.
They had
Does that make
asked,
sense? They may have
yes,
camped there. They
the
may have
places
camped
were-
there, but they didn't do the lots that said, okay, this belongs to
Yeah.
Manasseh, this belongs to Judah, etc.
they had asked Moses, those three tribes had asked Moses for permission to stay. Their reason was, part of the reason was good grazing land, apparently.
I remember that.
And Moses consulted with God, and then Moses gave them permission to stay on the other side. And then afterwards, their specific areas were named. Okay, everybody clear?
Thank you for that. It's a great explanation by everybody.
Okay, let's go to our Bibles. Oh, I need to tell you one other thing. And I've been racking my brain on how to explain this. The author put chapter 1 at the beginning of the book, but it's covering things that happened after chapter 2.
Okay.
Okay? You're going to run into that again. I don't know, Jane, I think it's you teaching chapter 4 and 5. 4 is ahead, but it's actually events that happen after chapter 5. And she's going to have fun explaining that. But
I can think of another word.
chapter 1, because it says, now it came about after the death of Joshua. Okay, chapter 2 talks about his death. So it's a description of things that happen. Why? I don't know, but that's the way the author wanted it. So this is talking about events that happened after the death of Joshua. Okay, now, would somebody read verses 1 through 7, please? And then we'll go back and discuss them. Verses chapter 1 through 7. Who's there?
Everybody.
Do you have it, Kathy?
I do.
Would you read 1 through
I
7?
sure-
And what
I sure
Bible are you reading? What Bible are you reading from?
NIV.
NIV. Okay.
After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go up. I have given the land unto their hands." The men of Judah then said to the Simeonites, their fellow Israelites, "Come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites. We in turn will go with you unto yours." So the Simeonites went with them. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found Adoni-Bezek and fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. The Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. They brought him to Jerusalem and he died there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Now let's dig it apart. The first verse. Now it came about after the death of Joshua that they inquired, or that the Lord saying, "Who shall go first?" And the Lord in verse 2 said, "Judah shall go up." And it's felt that this shows the importance of Judah, of the importance of the tribe of Judah. And you know, that's of course where Jesus came from. Okay. And in verse 3, Judah said to Simeon, his brother, "Come up with me." Now, why did they choose the tribe of Simeon to go with them? Joshua chapter 19:9 gives us a very good reason. Chapter 19, Joshua 19:9 reads, "The inheritance of the sons of Simeon was taken from the portion of the sons of Judah, for the share of the sons of Judah was too large for them. So the sons of Simeon received an inheritance in the midst of Judah's inheritance." So when God told the tribe of Judah to go to war, we'll call it, and they asked the tribe of Simeon, because they are right there, part of Judah. They're in the midst of Judah. Okay. I never could find the city of Bezek, Bezek, on the map. If some of you have better eyes than I do, there are quite a few cities that aren't on the map.
No, it's
Now,
there. It's
where?
there. Okay, go up the Jordan River about halfway up and then go to your left.
Oh, yeah.
Right
Above
above
Manasseh.
Manasseh.
Uh-huh.
Where did you find it?
Right
above-
above Manasseh,
Okay,
to your left.
to the left.
Not very far to your left.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is, right above the
Okay.
road. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Better eyes than mine. Okay. And they found Adoni-Bezek. Okay. Adoni, Adoni, is king. Is king. And he was king of Bezek. Or Bezek. Okay. And they fought against him. And then he fled. And they cut off his thumbs and his big toes. Now, the reason, and this goes with chapters 6 or verses 6 and 7. The reason for cutting off the thumbs and the toes, it served two purposes. One, if you cut off the thumb, they can't properly hold a weapon. You can't properly hold a weapon. So that was the reason for cutting off the thumb. The reason for cutting off the toe was primarily for degradation. By cutting off the toe, the person couldn't move properly, couldn't run properly, couldn't walk properly. And if you think about it, a soldier especially would find it very degrading because they wouldn't be able to work accurately in battle. So that's the reason for cutting off toes and thumbs. I had never thought about it, but when you think about it, or when you visualize it, it makes sense. Okay? So those are the main points in those first 7 verses. They went out, they succeeded. Judah took Simeon, the tribe of Simeon, with them, and they degraded. They didn't kill them, but they degraded them as a person. Okay, questions, comments? Verses 8 through 10. Verses 8 through 10, if somebody would read that. Kim, are you there? You're on mute.
I'm okay now.
Okay.
The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem also and took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. After that, Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev and the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called Kiriath Arba, and defeated Seshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there they,
Okay,
done.
let's stop there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's look first at verse 8. Jerusalem was not established by the Israelites. Jerusalem was already a city in existence. A lot of people think, oh, they went in and established Jerusalem. They did not. They also did not, and this is not here, I'm just adding, they did not establish Bethlehem. Bethlehem was also in existence when they moved into the land. So they were originally cities founded by infidels or the enemies of Israel. And just a quick review, see how much you remember. What was the only major city the Israelites are known to have founded? I'll give you a hint. It didn't happen till after they split, the north and the south. It was built in the north. Samaria. And this has nothing to do with the, listen, this is just an aside. Go up and find Ephraim. Do you see Ephraim? Everybody see Ephraim?
Not yet.
Slightly to the right is Shiloh. Okay, go up and see Shechem right above there. Okay, and then Mount Ebal. Okay, right in that area, actually 6 miles northwest of Shechem, is where the northern tribes built Samaria. Where the northern tribes built Samaria. It was only approximately 30 miles north of Jerusalem. It's of course not listed there on the map because it wasn't in existence. But Samaria was very close to Jerusalem after the country split. Okay. Now, verse 10, they went against the Canaanites who lived in Hebron, and that is on the map. Drop back down to where you see Judah. And right above Judah is Hebron or Hebron, however you want to pronounce it. So you see, they were not staying just in one area. They were kind of moving up and down. Okay. Now let's go verses 11 through 15. 11 through 15. If somebody would read that, please.
From there, they advanced to the people living in Debir, formerly called Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Achsah in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sepher. Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Achsah to him in marriage. One day when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, what can I do for you? She replied, do me a special favor. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me also springs of water. Then Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs.
Okay. Okay. Now, y'all know who Caleb is.
Yep.
Okay. Since this is describing, according to verse 1, after the death of Joshua, that would mean that Caleb was the last living person who came out of Egypt. Okay. And he had, if you look down towards the bottom, go back down to the bottom, sort of in the left-hand corner, you'll see the Negev, there the desert, and that's the area that had been given to Caleb. His daughter wanted the with springs or oasis, which he gave her. He also, keep this in mind, we'll go again, he gave Othniel, who is the son of Caleb's younger brother, to his daughter as her husband. Othniel was the first judge. He became the first judge. So Caleb's daughter married the man who became the first judge. Okay. How we do it? We'll go over that again when we get to into the talking about Othniel. Okay, verses 16. Well, I'm just going to cover verse 16 right now. I'll read it. The descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up from the city of palms with the sons of Judah to the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad, and they went and lived with the people. Okay, let's look at this. The descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law. What was Moses's father-in-law's name? Anybody remember?
Oh,
Jethro.
Jeff.
Jethro. And remember, well, let's go back and everybody turn to Exodus chapter 4. Exodus chapter 4, verses 24 to 26. Exodus chapter 4, verses 24 through 26. And if somebody will read those, please.
On the way, at a place where they spent the night, the Lord met him and tried to kill him. But Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched Moses's feet with it and said, "Truly, you are a bridegroom of blood to me." So he let him alone. It was then she said, "A bridegroom of blood by circumcision."
Right. So Jethro's important because Moses married his daughter Zipporah, who saved Moses's life. Okay. Let's look now at Exodus 18. Exodus 18 verses, and this is a long passage, 2 through 27. 2 through 27. Who would like to read that?
I'll read 2 through 11,
Okay,
and then somebody else can read 12 through 27.
okay, thank you.
After Moses had sent his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her 2 sons. One son was named Gershom, for Moses said, "I have become an alien in a foreign land." And the other was named Eleazar, for he said, "My father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh." Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the desert, where he was camped near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent word to him, "I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons." So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way, and how the Lord had saved them. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hand of the Egyptians. He said, "Praise be to the Lord who rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians and of Pharaoh, and who rescued the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly."
Okay. And now if someone would read 12 through 27, please.
I will, Marlene.
Thank you.
Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law, in the presence of God. The next day Moses took his seal to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people came to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and laws." Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who came to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them the decrees and laws and show them the way to live and the duties they are to perform. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, and have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country.
Okay. Now, the reason I bring that up, let's go back and look at verse 16 in Judges chapter 1. The descendants of the Kenite or Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up from the city of palms with the sons of Judah to the wilderness of Judah, which is in the sons of Arad, and they went and lived with the people. Thanks to the work done by Moses' father-in-law and his wife, remember, Zipporah saved Moses' life, and Jethro basically set up the legal system. For Moses, the Kenites or Kenites, whichever you want to call them, were able to live safely with the Israelites. Okay. Also, remember that in the first part, I think when Deborah was reading, Jethro did recognize God and made offerings to him. So he cleared the way, for lack of a better way of saying it, for the Kenites to live in peace with the Israelites. And they moved in primarily with the sons of Judah. Okay. Yeah, we've got a few minutes here. Verses 17 through 21. Verses 17 through 21. If somebody will read that, please. Laura, do you have it?
Yes.
You need, thank you.
Okay. Then the men of Judah went with the Simeonites, their brothers, and attacked the Canaanites living in Zephath, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore, it was called Hormah. The men of Judah also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its territory. The Lord was with the men of Judah. They took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had iron chariots. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the 3 sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, failed to dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, Jebusites live there with the Benjamites.
Okay. Now, remember I pointed out earlier how the Kenites were able to live in safety with no problem with the Israelites. Now, verse 21, the sons of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. So they've lived with the sons of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. The sons of Benjamin did not do what they were supposed to do. And remember, that was to get rid of everything. Let's look at verse 19. The Lord was with Judah, and they took possession of the hill country, but they did not drive out the inhabitants of the valley because they had iron chariots. Now, that is disobedience to God. That is disobedience to God. So they lived with them and did not have an easy time of it. They used the excuse, oh, they had iron chariots. But if they had done what they were supposed to do, turn to God for help, they would have been able to drive them out. They did not. Are you seeing a pattern being established here? The first two we've read much about, did not drive out the inhabitants as they had been told to do. And we're going to find that that is a pattern throughout as we go on. I have approximately 12 minutes after 12. Is anybody else?
That's it, yeah, on the computer. Yeah.
Okay, I think this is a good place to stop for this week because I want to establish a pattern for when we go on to next week. Okay. I want to close with my thought for the week. Jesus does not take us out of the turmoil and pain of daily life, but rather he walks with us as we live life. Okay, now let's go to Matthew 28. We haven't done this in a while, so rather than close with prayer, we're going to close with the benediction. And let's look, it's really only 18, but let's look at 16 through 20.
Chapter 28.
Matthew 28, the Great Commission. But the 11 disciples proceeded to Galilee, to the mountain which Jesus had designated. When they saw him, they worshiped him, but some were doubtful. And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the ages. Walk with God, live in peace, and have a wonderful week. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Marlene.
Thank you, Marlene.
You too.
Now I have to figure out how to shut this down.
Uh-oh.